Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Zia, I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Let's talk today about one of the biggest fears that you tend to experience when you're about to come out. So let's say you realize that you don't really identify with your biological sex and gender communicates to society. You realize you might be transgender or gender nonconforming or genderqueer or non-binary or any other gender expression. And you know you're gonna have to come out, right? Coming out is completely inevitable to a lot of us, and that's because a lot of you will undergo some part of transition, even if it is social transition, even if it is changing the way you express yourself in terms of your clothing, your choice of pronouns, perhaps you picked a different name. Or it could be a medical transition. Maybe it's the hormones you decide to undergo through, or it could be surgical transition. But nonetheless, for people who decide to transition in any facets of transition, coming out becomes inevitable because, well, we don't exist in a vacuum, right? I'm assuming you're not completely isolated, living somewhere on an island where you never confront human beings. But unless you fit into a particular isolated incident, most of us are not really fully isolated. We have families, we have relationships, we have friends, we have co-workers, we have people who are around us. So coming out becomes inevitable because as you go through these changes, as you change and as you become more authentic to how you see yourself, people around you see those changes and people can be very confused. So coming out, remember, you're not coming out to seek a permission. You're coming out to inform people around you that this is what's happening, this is what you're going to be doing, and that there's going to be some changes that's going to follow. You're also coming out because you want to affirm for yourself and accept your identity. Coming out is very important for that part, for you to really hold on and claim who you are and not to be afraid. But the fear, right? The fear is a big part of coming out. And one of the biggest things why the fear is there, and by the way, those of you who are watching who are in relationship or married, I will do a video on the biggest fear you experience coming out to your partners because it is a different fear. But the biggest fears that I find that people tend to experience when they're about to come out to anybody in their environment is this. You're afraid that people around you will not take your gender identity as valid. You're afraid that they will dismiss it. You're afraid that they're going to say that it's a phase you're going through, that you've been brainwashed, that this is something you made up in your head, that this is maybe a middle-age crisis for you, that maybe it has something to do with your sexuality, maybe there's childhood trauma, maybe there's something else going on. They're gonna have the scope and a whole bunch of ideas depending on their own ideas of gender. But the biggest fear that you're going to have is that they're not going to see this as valid. They're not going to take this as something that legitimate. It's going to be dismissed. And especially for those of you who are not really sure where you fall on the gender spectrum, it can be very scary because let's say right now you're not sure, but you think you may be just somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. Maybe you feel like you identify as non-binary. So you come out and you share it with your loved ones. And as you start transitioning socially, right, expressing yourself to the world in your true gender, you realize that perhaps you are much more comfortable presenting as more transmasculine. And as a result, you need to start either microdosing testosterone or go on testosterone, or maybe have any other changes come up in your life. And so now you're concerned because what's my loved ones are going to say? Is it going to say, well, make up your mind. How can you not know yourself? First you went from non-binary, now you're transmasculine. And this overall thing can be very difficult for a lot of you. One of the things you need to realize is that people that we come out to, people that you're going to come out to, well, they take their gender for granted. They wake up every single day without a single thought about their gender, without a single thought about how they see themselves in the world in relationship to their gender. If there's thoughts that come up in relationship to their gender, they're usually perhaps some kind of stigmas they experience or some kind of things they experience or prejudice they experience against their sex. But usually people tend to take their gender for granted. They don't experience dysphoria the way you experience it. And also because, well, gender dysphoria is one of the things where it's still in DSM. A lot of people still believe it's psychological. we don't have a test. You can't go to a doctor and get a blood work done, and doctor says, this is exactly, I can see by your blood work that you really have a medical condition, right? We don't have the type of medical validation yet. And also because we live in societies that is still so ridiculously binary. So many things in the society are so heteronormative that people around us, all they see is the binary point of view. And they have learned to accept that binary point of view as the only way. And when you think that's the only way and somebody comes in and says no, they think you are making this up. They think that you are delusional. They think that you are going through some kind of period in your life, whatever they're going to come up with. But that really comes up from a lot of people's ignorance. And one of the biggest problems in our society today that I feel is that we have taken biological sexes, right? And I'm no way disputing. I'm the first one to say that there's absolutely biological differences between sexes. That is science, that is a fact. But what we've taken as a culture society is that we've taken biological sex differences and then we layered them with gender constructs. And as a result, we pigeonhole gender constructs. And so what's happening now is a lot of people saying that, no, I don't really identify with this gender constructs that is so tied to my biological sex. That's not how I see myself. Whether you experience a very strong incongruency and you really want to go from one spectrum into the other end of a spectrum, or whether you somewhere in between, but nonetheless, we have a lot of people who are saying that, no, I don't really feel comfortable at all. This is not how I see myself. And the problem is that, again, is because we pigeonhole gender construct into, we bind it actually, they're kind of like, going and moving along together based on the sex. So because of those things, it becomes very difficult for a lot of people because that's the only things they're capable of seeing. So when they look at somebody who is biologically, let's say, born a male, what they think based on gender construct is a male, and then they see that person expressing feminine qualities or expressing themselves in any other gender-bending ways, suddenly it becomes very confusing. Suddenly it becomes inappropriate. Suddenly there's something going on. Whereas what you're really seeing perhaps is maybe somebody who is very comfortable with their sex, but very uncomfortable with their gender expression. So for that reason, this is one of the biggest fear really for you guys to come out, is that this fear is that people are going to invalidate you. People are going to come up with all of kind of things, to say what's going with you. And I heard it all. Middle-age crisis. I heard that you've been cursed. I heard that maybe that person has a trauma. Maybe there's childhood trauma tied to it. Maybe you're confused about your sexuality, which is, by the way, sexuality and gender are two different things. Maybe you are just unhappy in your life. Maybe you're so miserable that you're deciding to transition. And that's going to get you out of the misery. Whatever it is, people are going to come up with all kinds of things. And for that reason, it's very hard. It's very difficult. But at the same time, you have to come out because you have to hold on to your own truth. And this is why you seek support. This is why you seek people around you who are going through the same things. So that way you can hold on to your truth and you can see people who get it. This is why I make these videos, because I want to let you know that your identity is absolutely valid. And I want to let you know that I get it. It can be very difficult when the world outside you, when the big spectrum of everything that we have in our society, from religion to politics to even, you name it. You can't go to store without seeing gender binaries being superimposed on us. You can't even click on television. A lot of things still today are incredibly gender binary. For that reason, it feels like the complete world is wearing this particular pair of glasses with only male and female, and here you come in and your prescription is completely different, and it can feel like either you're crazy or the world is crazy. Well, we're changing that. That is changing. There's more and more people who say, yeah, your identity is completely valid. So this is one of the biggest fear, but it's really, for a lot of loved ones around us, it's more about educating them, breaking down this ignorance, really letting them know that Biological sex is one thing, gender construct is another thing. It's bringing all of those things to them. And with time, especially, people see that you're happy, people see that you're more congruent with yourself, and they start really eliciting a lot more support to you. At least I hope they do. But that's the biggest fear, really, is that you're not going to be validated. People are not going to see it as a valid identity. Well, trust me, there's a lot of people who do see it as valid identity. All you have to do is look at the comments on any of my videos where people are very supportive to each other. And that's just a testament to how many gender diverse people are out there. And my channel is still, pretty much a baby, but still a testament. There's a lot of gender diversity going on. There's a lot of people who are breaking out of the mold and realizing that, no, this is not how I see myself, but they're really struggling with a lot of dysphoria, and they really need to go through medical and surgical transition, or whether they're not comfortable with just gender roles and gender expressions. And I think that's a good thing that we're breaking out of the mold. So comment below, let me know if you're fearing, if you're about to come out, if this is holding you back, what are you thinking, what are you going to do? If you've been there and this has been your primary fear, share with others what helped you. Share with others what helped you to hold on to your truth, because people read each other's comments and they elicit support that way. One thing that I'm going to say that is mentioned in my bio, in my YouTube channel, but people keep forgetting, is that I work only with adults. And because I work only with adults, I can only speak to adult experience. Children, teenagers, young adults, very different. Very different experiences. I'm not competent to talk to those individuals. So if you fall in the category, and if you are a minor and you're watching this, well, keep in mind, my channel is really made for adults. And two, I'm drawing from my experience of working only with adults. And my primary group of individuals I work with tends to be 28 up to 70. So that's a pretty broad range of people who live their lives, who have a lot of experience, who have a strong sense of who they are. By the time they come to me and they struggle with any kind of gender incongruency. So keep that in mind when you watch this, because I'm getting a lot of minors lately commenting and reaching out for help. I'm not competent. It's not my forte. I'll do a video why I don't work with minors, so that way you get a better understanding why I don't take it on. Other than that, comment below. I'd love to hear your comments, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.